Okay. Now, I have already told what is risk and how many types of risk is there, what is the risk management strategies we have, what are the types of risk management strategies already we have gone through. Now, we are now actually describing about what are the activities we have to do when we are going for risk management. Okay. When we are going for risk management, at that time, what are the activities I have to perform, so that we are going through. So risk means I am a small recap I am doing the previous class, because it is continuous and process. It is a continuous process. I cannot directly go that particular point whatever I am continuing. Now see, what are the risk is uncertainty. If you're doing any task, if you're doing any task, not project management or not software engineering, any task if you go for, then you have some risk. You have some risk factor, and that you should take consideration, and then you should take some planning for that risk management. You have to do some planning for that risk management. So that is the thing, risk management tells. Now how I have already discussed how this management will be occurred, what are the principles of risk management, already I have discussed this thing. So main thing of this particular risk management is this forward looking view, global perspective, open communication, and integrated management and continuous process. That five principles we have in risk management strategies. So there are two types of risk management strategies, that is reactive and proactive. Now first you have to understand this particular thing. Reactive means already risk has arisen, then what to do. That is reactive, not proactive. This is reactive risk strategy means simply a risk already arisen, then what is the plan to recover that particular. So where are we? I think that is disconnected. Okay, fine. Now I think the I am audible. Am I audible? Audible now? Can anyone please reply?
Yes, sir.
Visibility is thing okay?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can analyze the term. You can analyze the term that is called reactive. Reactive means already it is inactive. That means risk already arisen. Then what you should do? That is called reactive risk strategy. But proactive means in the beginning itself you have to think about the risk, what may possibility is there. Then you should have some second plan. You have some third plan, fourth plan. This is the thing. This is called proactive. That means continuous and continuously you have to be active on that risk management. If any chance of risk, then also you have a plan. So that is proactive risk strategy. So that is reactive and proactive. Now the thing is, this basically proactive is avoidance of risk, and reactive means already risk happened, already risk arise, then what you should do, that is prevention. Now that is called the two types of risk strategies we have. Now already I have already this particular thing I have gone through. Now what to do. That means if risk has arisen or risk will be there must be some activities on your project management. That means whenever you are doing project management or project the software engineering methodologies, at that time you should think what the activities you should do for this risk management. So that first activity is called risk identification. So that means you have to identify the risk. There are two ways: generic risk and product specific risk. So that these things I have already discussed yesterday. So risk identification, that means first you have to first this is my first activity. Whenever you are trying to do risk management, this is your first activity you should perform. So risk identification means you have to identify the risk. What is the risk you should identify, and then you have to list out means how we can list out. We can make a checkbox, checklist. That is called checklist. So identify the possible risk, and step 2 is creating the checklist. So I have to, this is risk 1, risk 2, risk 3. In this way I have to identify the risk, and checklist you have to maintain. So that way you should identify and make the checklist of the risk, and then each and every risk, for each and every risk you have to specify one, what is the type of the specific risk. So if this risk one, I am thinking risk one, this may be a performance risk, so that is PR, I am writing PR here. So this is categorizing, I am categorizing each and every risk. This is your third step of risk identification. Fourth step is you have to give one see, you have to think about this impact of that particular risk. So every risk has an impact. That means it is a high impact or low impact. You should decide that impact of that risk inside your project. If it is very, so you can go through from 0 to 3, you can go through from 3 to 0. You, according to you, you have to categorize it. According to you, you have to categorize it. If you are thinking negligible, I am giving 0, that is fine. If you are thinking negligible, I'll give 3, that is also okay. So in ascending order, you are trying to give impact, or descending order you are trying to give impact, that's up to you. But you have to give one impact factor for each and every risk. Okay, fine. Each and every risk you have to give one, assign one impact factor. How it is impact factor? That means if first risk is very harmful, this first risk is very harmful for your project. Sometimes that risk may fail in your business. Then that is catastrophic. That is catastrophic. Is very high risk. It is, and critical means that is also very high risk, but sometimes it is not, it will not affect so that the catastrophic will affect. So that's the thing, you have to decide how much impact factor of that risk we have. So that is, you have to list out. That is, that the task is gone in risk identification. So you have to do risk identification means 4 things. Step 1, identify the risk. Step 2, checklist you have to prepare. Third, step 3, you have to categorize that risk. And fourth step is you have to think about the risk factor. That means impact factor of that particular risk. According to that, in risk projection, you have to build a risk table. In risk projection step, you have to make a risk table. What risk table will contact? Risk table will be like that. Risk table will be like that. So this is the risk list out I have given, list of the risk I have prepared, and category also I have given, that I have identified in risk identification. Here impact factor also I have decided. So here, so according to you, there this, it is catastrophic, I am giving 1. I have not given 0 any impact factor. I have given 1 impact factor for catastrophic. That means 1 is very highest. This critical is lesser than that, but higher than this marginal and negligible. So in this way, we are, according to me, we have to decide what impact factor I am giving, and according to this impact factor number, I should give that particular number. Fine. This table, risk table, I have to given in the risk projection phase. Now in risk projection phase, there are another task to do. The thing is, you have to think of the probability, how much probability of that risk will arise. Definitely, how much probability of that particular thing. That means risk, you are thinking that this risk may be possible. Please understand this very carefully. So in project risk projection, what we are doing, the probability that risk is real, that means that this line is very important. What it is, that means the probability, whatever I am thinking that risk may arise, that will arise or not, how much probability it have, how much probability it have that risk will really come. So that calculation you have to do in risk projection. Okay, so for that very statistics you have to understand, and that according to that statistic you have to calculate something, and then you have to finalize how much probability that particular risk have to arise. So that we have to, again we have to give in the risk table. So these 3, first one, second one, and fourth column, these 3 columns we have got from the risk identification phase. Fine. This third column I have taken from the risk identification phase. This particular column, third column, I have taken from that particular risk projection phase. Fine. So this risk projection and risk identification, both after both the work, we can develop a risk table. Fine. Fine. Up to this is very fine. Yes, no. Up to this is very fine. Yes, no. If this is fine, then only we can proceed for the next. Up to this, I have already covered in previous class. Is the thing okay? Is the thing okay up to this? Please reply. Is the thing okay up to this? Is the thing okay up to this? Please reply. Ibrahim? Ibrahim, is the thing okay?
Yes, sir. Okay.
I have to ask some other also. Srija? Srija, are you listening? Srija, are you listening? You are not listening, Srija. So please listen very carefully. Otherwise, you cannot understand that particular thing. Or you can reply by message also. Okay. If anything problem happens, anything problem arises, then please reply on the message box. I have given open, I have already opened for all the message box. Please do it in the message box. Now see, so the next what you should do. So two tasks already I have already done. First task, risk identification. Second task, risk projection. Third task, you have to make a risk table. Fine. These three tasks we have already gone through. Now, fourth task is your risk refinement. Is risk refinement. Now, please understand this. That is new. That is not new for today. Risk refinement means till now, whatever risk we have identified, please try to understand this particular line. Till now, whatever risk you have identified, that risk is not a standardized format. That means whatever risk you have written, that risk is not in standardized format written. That is written in your English language or general English language. Fine, this part is very okay. This particular is okay. Now what to do? That risk you have to rewrite again by using some standardized format. Fine. This is called risk refinement. Refinement. You analyze the term refinement. That means rewrite that particular risk. Rewrite that particular risk in a standardized format. So that means whatever you have written the risk till now, that is not a standardized format. That is written only a general English language. Fine. This thing is very okay now. This thing is very okay. Yes, no. This thing is
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Refinement. That means you have to standardize that risk. In standardized format, you have to rewrite those risks. That is called refinement. So that means there must be a particular format inside your company, whatever company you are doing, whatever under which company you are performing the risk management, that particular company has a particular format to write that particular risk. So that format, using that format, you have to rewrite all those risks. That is called risk refinement. Fine. General format is given condition transition consequence. This is condition transition consequence, CTC. In short, this calls CTC. Okay, this calls CTC, condition transition consequence format. So that is a standardized format given by the thus RMM factor. Now see, this particular format, if you go through, that is a standardized format, but you may have your own format style. Please try to understand this. Their one format they have given, that is condition transition consequence form, that is a standardized format overall worldwide, that is accepted. Okay, fine. But you may have your own standardized format. Fine. That is not surely you have to take this format only. You can generate your own format. Fine, this thing is very okay. So this condition transition consequence format tells, first condition you should write, this is the way to write. First condition of that particular thing you should write, and then what is the risk may appear that you should write here. In this way you should write the risk, individual risk. That means, see, give that, take again one example. If this employee xyz has left the company, then schedule will increase. That means the end date of that particular project may increase. This is your risk. So that means this xyz person, one person xyz is will left the company. This particular, the schedule may hamper. So that the thing you have to write in this way. Given that you should write, given that xyz person, the condition is xyz person will left the company. This is your condition. The condition you should write here. Then there is concern that possibly there is concern that your schedule of that particular will increase. The end date, that means the finalized date may increase. So in this way you should write in a the all the risk. That means this particular words, given that this particular words you must write. Then there is a concern that this particular word also you should write. So in short, you should find the what is the condition of that risk and what is the effect of that particular risk. What is the effect on that particular project it may arise. So that thing you should write in this particular format only. So given that you should write, given that, then you should write condition, then there is a concern that this particular sentence you should write, and then you should give the what are the effect this particular project in this particular project may arise. In this format only you should write the refinement. Is the thing okay? Is the thing okay? This format is given by condition transition consequence format. This is CTC format. This is CTC format. Fine. But you may have your personal standardized format for your company. You may develop that. That is also free thing you have to give. You have to activity you have to give. So that thing also you should take as a, but this particular thing, this particular format also, standardized format also you can take from the CTC. Fine. Fine. This thing is very okay. Yes, no. Risk refinement. Risk refinement is very okay. Yes, no. Is the thing okay, or I should explain again? Is the thing okay? Please tell me. You are not giving answers. Okay, only Kritin replying every time. What about rest? Sometimes Ibrahim also, but rest you are not replying. Okay, now so risk refinement is okay. So first task what you should do, that is risk identification. Okay, first task you should do, that is risk identification. Second task, risk projection. So risk identification, three things you have to do. One is finalize the risk, then you said should give one impact factor, and you should give one that category of that risk. So this three things we have to do inside the identification phase. And then you should do for the risk projection. Risk projection, that means what is the probability to that risk will arise. In really the risk will arise. So that thing is called risk projection. And second thing you have to do risk table. Fine. So these three tasks, after finishing these three tasks, whatever the problem in risk have, that risk you have written, that is not a standardized format, that is written in a regular format, normal English language format. So that's why you have to uh, rewrite that particular risk in a standardized format, that is called risk refinement. Fine. Now what should I do? You should do, after this risk refinement, you should do the management. Now you have a management plan. Now after this standardized format, that means risk is very well known for all the employees, because everything is written in a standardized format. Every risk you have written in a standardized format. What are the possibilities of the risk probability, I have already found out. What are the impact factor of that risk, I have already found out. So everything is done. So every risk is very clear to, very well known for the employees. Now after risk refinement, every risk factor is well known for the employees. This thing you have to finalize. Then you should go for the planning part. Then you should go for the planning and handling part, handling of those risks, how this particular risk will be handled. So for that, one standardized format came, that is called RMMM. This particular thing, in short note, every time I think in exam it will arise by short note itself. So RMMM, that is stands for risk mitigation, monitoring, and management. So RMMM stands for risk mitigation, risk monitoring, and then management. So these three things you should do for the planning. For the planning, this is a standardized format. RMMM is a standardized format for handling the risk management. So for risk management, you should always follow this particular RMM standardized format to handle that risk. So that is called RMM. This is a standardized format. See, a risk management technique is usually seen in a software project plan. So now this is a RMM will come inside this particular phase, that is project plan. Whatever planning you are doing, so that means in the beginning of that particular software development, you should do project plan. Fine. You should do project plan. This RMM, risk factor also, risk management also, you should do in the beginning of the project, starting of the project. So that you should do in risk management, risk mitigation, monitoring, and management. Now you should understand risk mitigation, monitoring, and management. Now see, after doing every task, after doing every task, you should prepare a risk information set. every After doing every task, you should prepare a risk information sheet. Risk information sheet means risk, here every information of that risk, of a particular risk, is written. So for each and every particular risk, you have to make a risk information sheet. On that sheet, every information of that particular risk is written. Thing is okay. Thing is okay. In this first step of this particular mitigation, monitoring, and management, everything should be tracked, and everything should be, you should write on that particular sheet. One sheet you should make for each and every risk. That means one page you should prepare for each and every risk. Okay, that page have all the information about the risk. Things clear? This thing is your first task. Now what should be written on that particular sheet? What should be written on that particular sheet? That you can go for the risk mitigation. Now risk mitigation, what is the task of risk mitigation? This is an activity used to avoid the problem, avoid the risk. Please try to understand this. This risk mitigation comes under avoiding the risk. Now what are the finding out the risk? You should do first finding out the risk. then removing cause of the reason of risk creation. That means first you have to think what is the cause of that risk. If there are any problem in employee's mind, that first you should clear that particular fact. Anything happens in your employee's mind, so that means what is the cost of that particular cause of that particular risk. First you have to identify, and then you remove that cause. That may be anything. See, need to have a policy so that a process continues even staff leaves in between. So if everywhere you must need a policy to make that particular thing, that to removing this cause. That means everywhere there must be a policy according to the rule. Everyone should follow. If everyone goes according to the rule, then nothing will arise on that particular project. So every phase you must follow some rule. You should not be biased for an employee. So that's why the risk may arise for any of these particular factors. What are the factors are there which may arise the risk? That factors you should remove. That is called risk mitigation. First step, risk mitigation. You should remove all the risk. Fine. And then your next task is risk monitoring. Monitoring means, please, you know the term monitoring. Monitoring means every day, but time to time you have to make some meeting, and that risk, any problem arises or not, any problem will arise or not, any misconcept generates in employees mind or not, if anything happens in your in employees personal life or not, everything you should monitor. Everything you should monitor. That is the thing. So what are the risk factor we have? That particular risk factor may arise in between also. In starting you have identified the cause of risk, and then you have already solved the risk, but then also it may arise. Then also it may arise in between. Whenever you have started the work, at that time that may arise again. So that's why time to time you have to do some meeting, you have to do some activity, so that that risk will be monitored. And every time you should write the information of any risk about information in that particular documents. What is documents calls? That documents calls risk information sheet. This risk information sheet, any task you are doing for this risk management, that activity you should write on that particular sheet. On that particular sheet, that is called risk information sheet. Okay, so risk mitigation means you should find the cause of the particular risk, and then you should remove first in the beginning. In the beginning itself, then what you should do, you should again, you have already find out, you have already finished, but still risk may arise in between also. Some negativity generates in employees mind, some any personal problem arise in your employees, anything may arise on that particular term in between. So for that particular also you should monitor day by day. Every time you should, once you have identified, that means I will not consider the next, that is not, that will not be there. So you must day by day, after some day, behavior of that particular team, the risk factors again should be monitored, again should be monitored, and then you should have some policy, that is called risk management and planning. So that is, you should have, every time you should have a policy to identify the risk, and that particular monitoring. Every phases of this risk management you must have a policy. This is written here. Every time you must have a policy, and you always follow the policy. Otherwise, if you don't have any policy, then some misconcept will generate definitely in employees mind. Because sometimes one teacher or one employee may be biased for to other employees. So every time you should follow, everywhere you should follow a particular policy, so that risk will be identified and risk will be managed. So that thing called risk management and planning. So every time you should have, so that the thing is called risk mitigation, monitoring and management. Mitigation means you should identify the cause in the beginning of the phase, and then you should remove that. Done. Then in between also the risk will may come again, the risk factor may arise. So that for that case you have to monitor it. And then last, management tells that every time you have a policy, and that policy, according to the policy, you should follow, otherwise risk may arise. So that is called risk mitigation, monitoring, and management. And finally, I am giving one example of RIS set, risk information set, that you should go through and you can understand that particular thing. See, risk information set, here every description of that particular risk is given here. See, risk ID, this is a particular risk, this is a particular risk, which date it is identified, what is the probability of that, what is the impact factor of that, and how this particular risk will may arise, what are the reason for that. Mitigation means how we have solved this problem, and then continuous monitoring. Monitoring, mitigation and monitoring both we cover in this particular phase. And then what are the policy you have generated for that particular risk, and then current status also, that means monitoring, we are doing monitoring now, you are doing monitoring, so that thing also you should might write here, every day which date you have already identified, or which date I have already monitored that. See, it is 5/9, the date generate is 5/9, but it is 5/12, that means, and on that particular date I have already reviewed that particular risk again, and what is the originator of that particular risk, and who are the assigned to handle that risk. Every information of that risk factor I have written here. So that is the one example. Basically, I have given one example of risk information set. So if anybody will see that particular risk at an information set, he or she easily will understand what are the risk factor it may arise and what you should do for that particular risk. Understood this very clearly? Yes, no? Understood this bit very clearly? Yes, no? Please try to reply. So what I have done today, risk refinement, risk mitigation, monitoring and management, RMMM. And lastly, I have given one example of risk information sheet. On that particular sheet, every information about that risk is maintained. Is the thing okay? Please take the screenshot. Anyone, please take the screenshot. Otherwise, 1 minute, less than 1 minute time is there. Kritin? Kritin, taken? Yes, sir. Okay, you send me. Now, can I stop there? Is the thing clearly understood? Thank you.